Hey everyone, welcome back to English Without Effort. I'm David.
And hi, I'm Alice. So glad you're here with us today.
Quick thing before we dive in. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do it right now. Hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell so you never miss a new episode. It honestly means the world to us.
It really does. And if you're a regular listener, thank you. You have no idea how much that keeps us going.
Now, I want to say something to you directly, wherever you are right now. Maybe you're on the bus. Maybe you're making coffee. Whatever. Just by listening to us have a real conversation like this, your English is getting better. Seriously.
Yes! And I know that sounds almost too easy, right? Like, I don't have to study? But it's true. Your brain is picking up the rhythm, the patterns, the natural way we connect words, all without you even trying.
You don't need to memorize grammar rules. You don't need to write anything down. Just keep listening. One day, you'll open your mouth and the right words will just come out. And you'll think, wait, where did that come from? It came from this, from listening.
Okay, I love that. Hang in there, keep listening, and trust the process. All right, David, what are we talking about today?
Okay, so today's topic is something that I think almost everyone has experienced. And honestly, it's a little stressful. We're talking about jumping into meetings. Like speaking up in a meeting, joining a conversation that's already happening, making your voice heard.
Oh, this is such a good topic. And when you say meetings, you mean like work meetings, right? Video calls, conference rooms, that kind of thing?
Yeah, work meetings, but also just any group conversation, really. Like when you're in a class discussion or even a group dinner where everyone's already deep into a topic and you want to jump in.
Right. And for a lot of people, especially if English isn't your first language, that moment of trying to jump into a conversation is kind of a big deal. It can feel really scary.
Totally. I mean, even for native speakers, it's awkward sometimes. You're sitting there, you have something to say, and you're like, okay, when do I go? How do I get in?
And then someone else says it, and you're just sitting there like, yep, that was my point. Thanks.
That's the worst. That's happened to me so many times. You've been building up to saying something for like 2 minutes, and then someone else just casually drops it, and everyone goes, oh, great point. And you're just silent.
Oh my gosh, that's so relatable. Okay, so let's actually talk about this. Why is it so hard to jump into meetings? Like, what makes it difficult?
Well, I think there are a few things going on. First, there's the timing problem. Conversations move fast, especially in a group. There's this tiny window where you can jump in, and if you miss it, the moment is gone.
Yeah, exactly. And in a video call, it's even worse because you can't really read the body language the same way. You know, in person, you can kind of lean forward and people notice. But on a screen, you're just a little rectangle.
A little rectangle trying to exist. That's honestly the best description of a video call I've ever heard.
I mean, it's accurate. And then there's the confidence thing. Like, even if you know exactly what you want to say, there's that voice in your head going, is this a good point? Should I say this? What if I say it wrong?
And for English learners, that voice is even louder, right? Because it's not just, is this a good point? It's also, do I have the right words? Will people understand me? Will I freeze up?
Yeah, and honestly, I think that's the biggest barrier. It's not vocabulary. It's not grammar. It's confidence. It's that moment of, okay, I'm going to open my mouth now.
So let's talk about some real strategies, because I think there are actually some really simple phrases, like expressions you can use, that make jumping into a meeting so much easier.
Oh yes, let's do this. Give me the phrases, David.
Okay, so the first one, and this is probably the most useful, is can I jump in here? Or just, can I jump in? It's polite, it's quick, and it signals to everyone that you want to speak.
Right, and it works in almost any situation. Work meeting, class, group chat on a call. Can I jump in? Is kind of a universal key.
Exactly. And the thing I love about it is that it's assertive, but not rude. You're not just talking over someone. You're asking for the floor in a really natural way.
I use that one all the time, actually. And I've noticed that when you say it with a little confidence, like not a tiny whisper, but a clear voice, people stop and listen. It's kind of a big deal how much tone matters.
Oh, absolutely. Tone is everything. You can say the exact same words and sound either completely lost or totally in control, just based on how you say them.
Okay, what's the next phrase?
So another good one is, actually, I wanted to add something to that. This one is great because it connects your comment to what someone else just said. You're not starting from zero, you're building on the conversation.
Oh, I like that. It shows you were listening, which is always good. Like, you're not just waiting for your turn to talk. You actually heard what they said, and you have something to add.
Right. And in a professional setting, that's huge. People notice when you're engaged versus when you're just, staring at your screen waiting.
Or checking your phone. Not that I would ever do that in a meeting.
Of course not. Never.
Absolutely not. So we've got, can I jump in? And I wanted to add something to that. What else?
Okay, here's one that I think is really underrated. That's a great point. And I think you start by acknowledging what someone said, and then you pivot to your own idea.
Oh, that's smooth. That's really smooth.
Right? It's like a social lubricant. You validate the other person, and then you get your turn. Everyone feels good.
I mean, it's almost too easy. But it works. And it doesn't feel fake if you actually mean it. Like, if it really was a great point, just say so.
Exactly. Authenticity matters. Don't say great point if you think it was a terrible point. People can tell.
They can definitely tell. Okay, so I want to share something from my own experience, because I think it's relevant here.
Please, yes.
So a few years ago, I was in this team meeting. Big group, maybe 15 people, and my manager asked for ideas. And I had this idea that I was really excited about. I'd been thinking about it all week.
Okay, I feel the tension already.
So I'm sitting there, and I keep almost saying it, but someone else is always talking. And I'm like, okay, now? No, he's still going. Now? No, she jumped in. And by the end of the meeting, I hadn't said a single word.
Oh no.
And my manager pulled me aside afterwards and said, Alice, you seemed really quiet today. Is everything okay? And I was mortified. Because I wasn't quiet in my head. I was screaming in my head.
That's such a real experience. I think so many people have been there. You're so busy waiting for the perfect moment that the whole meeting passes you by.
Exactly. And the lesson I learned was, there is no perfect moment. You have to kind of make your moment. You have to jump in even when it feels a little uncomfortable.
That's such a good takeaway. You have to make your moment. I love that.
And it gets easier. Like, the first time you do it, your heart is pounding. But the second time, it's a little less scary. And by the 10th time, it's just normal.
It's like anything, right? The first time you do something that feels risky, it's terrifying. But you build up a kind of tolerance.
Totally. Hang in there. That's the advice. Just keep trying.
Okay, I want to talk about something slightly different but related. What about when you're in a meeting and you want to disagree with someone? Because that's a whole other level of difficulty.
Oh, that is so much harder. Because now you're not just jumping in, you're pushing back. And that can feel really confrontational, especially in some cultures.
Right. And I think a lot of English learners, and honestly a lot of people in general, avoid disagreeing because they don't want to seem rude or difficult.
But the thing is, in most professional settings, especially in Western workplaces, respectful disagreement is actually valued. Like, it shows you're thinking critically. It shows you're engaged.
Exactly. And there are phrases that let you disagree without sounding aggressive, like, I see what you mean, but I wonder if. Or, that's interesting. I actually had a slightly different take on that.
Oh, I had a slightly different take on that is so good. It's soft, but it's clear. You're not attacking the person, you're just offering another perspective.
And you can even say, can I push back on that a little? Which is very direct, but also very professional. It's kind of a big deal in English. You can be direct without being rude if you use the right framing.
Yes, framing is everything. Like, you're wrong and I had a slightly different take on that can mean the same thing. But one of them is going to get you a lot further in a meeting.
One of them might get you fired, and one of them might get you promoted.
No way, that's too real. But yes, exactly.
Okay, so let's also talk about the virtual meeting situation because I feel like that deserves its own conversation. Things are just different on a video call.
They really are. And I think a lot of people have had the experience of you unmute yourself to say something, and then someone else starts talking at the exact same moment. And then you both stop, and then you both start again. And it's just this awkward loop.
The dreaded double start. It's like a traffic jam, but for conversation.
And then one person says, "No, you go ahead." And the other person says, "No, you go ahead." And 5 minutes have passed, and nothing has happened.
So what do you do in that situation? What's the move?
I think the move is just go. Pick one person to defer to and then actually wait. Like, if you say, "No, you go ahead," mean it. Let them actually finish.
And then when they're done, you can say, "Can I jump in?" And pick up where you were going. Don't just abandon your point. Come back to it.
Yes, your point doesn't expire. You can still make it 2 minutes later.
That's actually a really useful thing to remember. Your point doesn't expire. Sometimes people think, "Oh, the moment passed. I can't say it now." But you totally can. You can say, "Going back to what we were discussing earlier, I wanted to add something to that."
Oh, that's good. That's a real phrase people use all the time. Going back to what you said earlier. It's a great way to resurrect a point.
And it shows you have a good memory, which is always a bonus.
Or that you wrote it down, which is also fine. I write everything down.
There's no shame in that. Okay, I want to touch on one more thing, and this is something I find really interesting. The difference between jumping into a meeting when you're a junior person versus when you're more senior.
Oh, interesting. Say more.
So when you're new to a job or younger in the team, there's often this unspoken rule that you should kind of wait your turn. Like, let the senior people speak first, and then you add your thoughts.
Right. And I think that's true in some workplaces more than others. Like, in some cultures, speaking up when you're junior is actually seen as disrespectful.
Exactly. And this is where it gets culturally complicated, because in other workplaces, if you don't speak up, people assume you have nothing to contribute.
So you're kind of navigating two different sets of rules at the same time. The language rules and the cultural rules.
Which is genuinely hard. And I think the best advice there is just to observe for a bit when you're new. Watch how other people jump in. See who speaks first, who waits, how interruptions are handled. Kind of learn the rhythm of that specific group.
That's really smart. Every team has its own rhythm, right? And once you understand the rhythm, you can find your moment.
Exactly. And then when you do jump in, use those phrases we talked about. Can I jump in? I wanted to add something to that. I had a slightly different take on that. They work in almost any context.
You know, I'm thinking about our listeners right now. If you're someone who has a meeting coming up, maybe tomorrow, maybe next week, I want you to pick just one of those phrases and try it. Just one.
Yes. Don't try to use all of them at once. That would be weird. Just pick one and try it, even if it feels a little awkward the first time.
And honestly, even if it is a little awkward, that's okay. Nobody is judging you as harshly as you're judging yourself. People are mostly thinking about their own stuff.
That is so true. Everyone in a meeting is a little bit nervous and a little bit distracted. You are not the center of attention the way you think you are.
Which is both humbling and incredibly freeing.
Right? Like, nobody is sitting there analyzing your grammar. They just want to hear your idea.
They want to hear your idea. That's it. That's the whole thing.
Okay, I think we should also quickly mention, what if you're in a meeting and you don't understand something? Because that's another moment where people freeze up.
Oh, yes. This is huge. Because sometimes you're in a meeting and someone uses a term or an abbreviation that you just don't know. And you're like, do I ask? Do I just nod and figure it out later?
And most people choose to nod, which I totally understand. But sometimes, nodding gets you into trouble later.
It really does. Like, you nod through the whole meeting, and then at the end your manager says, "So, Alice, can you handle that?" And you have absolutely no idea what that is.
Been there.
So the phrase I love for this is, "Sorry, can I just clarify something?" It's polite, it's brief, and it signals that you're paying attention, not that you're lost.
That's a great one. Or even simpler, just to make sure I understand. And then you restate what you think was said. That way you're confirming your understanding, and it shows you're engaged.
And people love that, actually. In a good meeting, clarifying questions are welcome. They slow things down in a useful way.
Totally. Okay, I think we've covered a lot of ground today. Let's kind of pull it together.
Yes. So, jumping into meetings. It's hard. It takes confidence. But there are real phrases you can use to make it easier.
Can I jump in? Your universal key. I wanted to add something to that, for building on a conversation. I had a slightly different take on that, for disagreeing politely. And, sorry, can I just clarify? For when you need to understand something better.
And the big mindset shift. There is no perfect moment. You have to make your moment. Your point doesn't expire. And nobody is judging you as harshly as you're judging yourself.
I love all of that, and honestly, the more you do it, the easier it gets. Hang in there. Keep practicing. It really does get better.
You know, I'm actually curious. Next time, should we talk about small talk? Like the conversations before the meeting officially starts? Because I feel like that's its own whole skill.
Oh, that is such a good idea. Because small talk is kind of a big deal. It sets the whole tone for the meeting. And a lot of people find it even harder than the meeting itself.
Right? Like the meeting hasn't even started and you're already stressed. We should definitely do that one.
It's decided. Small talk before meetings? Next episode.
And hey, before we go, a quick reminder. If you're finding this helpful, subscribe and turn on notifications. We put out new episodes regularly, and we really don't want you to miss one.
Seriously, it takes 2 seconds and it helps us so much. And it means you'll always have something good to listen to on your commute or whenever.
That's it for today, everyone. Thank you so much for listening. Go find your moment in that next meeting.
Take care, and we'll see you next time. Bye.